Hello viewers, this video covers an important topic of human body concerned with the tracts or pathways within our spinal cord which carry information from and to the brain. The information carried includes the various sensory signals to the brain and signals for the movement of different parts of the body from the brain. The bony vertebral arch is formed by the pedicles and the laminae. Two pedicles extend from the side of the vertebral body to join the body to the arch. The demonstrated transverse section of the spinal cord has been taken at a lower level than the part where decussation or crossing over of tracts takes place, that is, the upper spinal level. The spinal cord is elliptical in cross section, being compressed dorsolaterally. A transverse section of the adult spinal cord shows white matter in the periphery containing sensory and motor axons. The grey matter inside contains the nerve cell bodies arranged in the three grey columns that give the region its butterfly shape. Grey matter is distinguished from white matter in that it contains numerous cell bodies and relatively few myelinated axons, while white matter contains relatively few cell bodies and is composed chiefly of long-range myelinated axons. The color difference arises mainly from the whiteness of myelin. The white matter is divided into the following regions: dorsal or posterior column, also called the funiculus, lateral column, and the ventral column, also called the anterior column. The anterior white commissure resides in the center of the spinal cord, and it contains crossing nerve fibers that belong to the spinothalamic tracts, spinocerebellar tracts, and anterior corticospinal tracts. The anterior funiculus is limited medially by the ventromedian sulcus and laterally by the ventrolateral sulcus. Anterior tracts includes tectospinal, reticulospinal, vestibulospinal, and the ventral corticospinal tracts. The tectospinal tract coordinates movement of head, neck, and eyeball based on stimulus. Ventral corticospinal tract mediates balance and postural movements. The lateral funiculus is limited ventrally and dorsally by the ventrolateral and dorsolateral sulci. These include the lateral corticospinal tract, lateral vestibulospinal tract, and the rubrospinal tracts, located in the lateral funiculus or lateral column. Anterior and lateral corticospinal tracts convey skilled voluntary movements. Rubrospinal tract facilitates flexor and inhibits extensors. Vestibulospinal tract facilitates extensor and inhibits flexor. The posterior funiculus is located lateral to the dorsal median sulcus and medial to the dorsolateral sulcus. The nerve fibers comprising the ascending tract emerge from the first order neuron located in the dorsal root ganglia. The ascending tracts transmit sensory information from the sensory receptors to higher levels of the CNS. The ascending gracile and cunate fasciculi occupy the dorsal column and are sometimes named the dorsal funiculus. These fibers carry information related to fine touch, tactile stereognosis, two-point discrimination of simultaneously applied pressure, vibration, position, and movement sense and conscious proprioception. Axons entering the spinal cord in the sacral region are found in the dorsal column near the midline and comprise the fasciculus gracilis, whereas axons that enter at higher levels are added in lateral positions and comprise the fasciculus cuneatus. This orderly representation is termed somatotopic representation. In the lateral funiculus, the lateral spinothalamic tract carries pain, temperature, and crude touch information from somatic and visceral structures. Nearby laterally, the dorsal and the ventrospinocerebellar tracts carry unconscious proprioception information from muscles and joints of lower extremity to the cerebellum. Surrounding the ependymal layer of the central canal is the gray matter, a region containing cell bodies of neurons. It is shaped like the letter H or a butterfly. The two wings of the butterfly are connected across the midline by dorsal gray commissure. The shape and size of the gray matter varies according to the spinal cord level. At the lower levels, the ratio between the gray matter and the white matter is greater than in higher levels, mainly because lower levels contain less ascending and descending nerve fibers. The gray matter in the spinal cord is split into three gray columns. The anterior gray column contains motor neurons. These synapse with interneurons and axons of cells that have traveled down the pyramidal tract. These cells are responsible for movement of muscles. The lateral gray column contains neurons that innervates visceral and pelvic organs. The posterior gray column contains the points where sensory neurons synapse. These receive sensory information from the body, including fine touch, proprioception, and vibration. This information is then transmitted in axons up the spinal cord in spinal tracts, including the dorsal column or the medial meniscus and the spinothalamic tract, that terminate rostally in the brainstem, cerebellum. Still, other column cells send their axons across the midline to terminate in gray matter close to their origin and are called commissure association column cells. The propriospinal cells are spinal interneurons whose axons do not leave the spinal cord proper. Propiospinal cells account for about 90% of spinal neurons. Some of these fibers also are found around the margin of the gray matter of the cord and are collectively called the fasciculus proprius. From each pedicle, a broad plate, that is lamina, projects backwards and medialwards to join and complete the vertebral arch and form the posterior border of the vertebral foramen, which completes the triangle of the vertebral foramen. The dura mater is the outermost layer and it forms a tough protective coating. Between the dura mater and the surrounding bone of the vertebra is a space called the epidural space. The epidural space is filled with adipose tissue and it contains a network of blood vessels. There are 7 processes projecting from the vertebra, that are 1 spinous process, 2 transverse processes, and 4 articular processes. This was all for today's video. Let's meet in the next video with some interesting topics. Thank you.